Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Inside the spectral demiplane. Huo Yuhao stepped out from his spectral gate with a flash, but realized to his surprise once he came out that somewhere in the distance was an ocean of fire. Agonizing cries and furious roars could be heard as surging undead auras erupted both inside the sea of fire and around it. Huo Yuhao was this spectral demiplane's owner, and he could clearly feel that his entire demiplane's undead aura had been weakened by at least 10%. What kind of destructive force could achieve that? Huo Yuhao howled into the air as he tapped his foot on the ground and soared into the sky. Flourishing ultimate ice swiftly permeated outward as he rose into the air, and the temperature quickly plummeted as enormous snowflakes danced around his body. Huo Yuhao could get a better look from a higher altitude. Everything within 5 kilometers of a certain point was bathed in fire. Fortunately, Huo Yuhao didn't choose a place near the Soul Engineer Legion's camps when he placed Ma Xiao into his spectral demiplane. Otherwise, all their resources stored inside the demiplane would have been destroyed. Ma Xiao was like a savage beast in human form as she charged around on the ground, and undead creatures were reduced to dust wherever she went. Ma Xiaotao's ultimate fire wasn't pure, but still possessed immense destructive power. The undead creatures were not even afraid of holy auras, but they were very fearful of her ultimate fire. All kinds of undead creatures couldn't really resist her ultimate fire. Fortunately, the overbearing Ma Xiao had infuriated several ice dragons inside the spectral demiplane, and those ice dragons had teamed up and barely stopped her hysterical massacre. Huo Yuhao slapped his forehead. Bai was clearly not around, because he hadn't taken the Jiangshi Ice Bear King back in when he fell unconscious. Otherwise, Ma Xiao wouldn't be so destructive if he were around to command the other undead creatures. Huo Yuhao unleashed his snowy dance of ultimate ice as his long howl traveled far into the distance. He was this place's dictator, and those undead creatures had approved of him long ago as he continued to grow stronger. Ice dragons were the strongest undead creatures inside his spectral demiplane. Of course, that was excluding Bai. These ice dragons' fighting strength could almost compare to that of a titled Douluo, and 3 ice dragons teaming up could barely restrain Ma Xiao. They were all injured and battered, and they immediately roared deeply when they heard Huo Yuhao's howl to ask him for assistance. Ma Xiao seemed to sense Huo Yuhao's aura as she turned her head towards the sky. Her dark red eyes immediately radiated intense insanity. When enemies came face to face, their eyes would burn with hatred. Huo Yuhao had tossed her in before this, and she had recovered a little before she began to massacre everything around her. The Holy Ghost Church had carved murder into her bones a long time ago. Ma Xiao shouted angrily when she saw Huo Yuhao, and her phoenix wings flapped as she dashed toward him like a shooting star. Huo Yuhao paused in the air as he immediately unleashed his snowy dance of ultimate ice. Vigorous hurricanes of ice and snow immediately formed a giant whirlpool that swept toward Ma Xiao. Even though his mind was still a little fatigued, his yin-yang equilibrium soul core's regenerative ability had enabled him to fully recover his soul power. How could Ma Xiao be a match for him under such circumstances? Huo Yuhao's ultimate ice locked her down completely. Ma Xiao was like a tiny moth struggling in a blizzard. She had already consumed much of her soul power, because she had been fighting for a long time. She was now faced with Huo Yuhao, and his ultimate ice affected her soul power, while she expended soul power continuously to the point where her soul power was finally depleted. Ma Xiao was so hysterical that she wanted to detonate her soul core, but Huo Yuhao dashed forward in the nick of time and used his snowy dance of ultimate ice to completely immobilize her. Huo Yuhao brought Ma Xiao back to the ground. He stared at her frozen body and berserk expression as he heaved a long sigh. "I've let you down, sister. I wasn't able to rescue you earlier, and that's why you've become like this." Huo Yuhao opened his arms as he spoke and hugged Ma Xiao gently. Huo Yuhao had completely recovered from the injury he had sustained from the demonic god's blade due to his tremendous life energy. Huo Yuhao's soul power rippled, and his ultimate ice diffused into Ma Xiaotao's body through his hug, and suppressed the evil fire in her body. Ma Xiaotao's soul power was just starting to recover, because of her soul core, but her soul core now slowed down as the ultimate ice surged forcefully into her body. Huo Yuhao helped her cross her legs to sit down before he sat opposite her, and he used controlling crane capturing dragon to draw her palms forward and place them against his as he slowly channeled his ultimate ice soul power, which was as pure as could be and mixed with his spiritual power, into Ma Xiaotao's body. Huo Yuhao's soul power entered Ma Xiaotao's passageways, and his heart twisted into a knot. Ma Xiaotao's situation was different from Tang Wutong. The aura of death had completely corroded Tang Wutong, while Ma Xiaodao was plagued by evil. Ma Xiaotao's situation was comparatively better, but her passageways, skeleton, and organs had been eroded by evil qi for a long time, and that was troublesome, especially since that evil qi had vigorously invaded her spiritual sea. However, Huo Yuhao wasn't like how he had been when he had first attempted to treat Ma Xiaodao. There was nothing he could do back then, and he could only rely on his ultimate ice to suppress that evil. Everything was different now, and his spiritual power was so much stronger than all that time ago. Huo Yuhao's soul power forcefully suppressed Ma Xiaotao's evil fire under his intricate control, and he forced out the evil qi thread by thread, like he was extracting parasites from her body. Huo Yuhao had trouble guiding the evil qi out of her body in the beginning, but he began to chant a spell, and the evil qi became a lot more malleable when the power of purification gradually coursed through Ma Xiaotao's passageways. In other words, the evil qi was being directly purified. Huo Yuhao used his ultimate ice, his formidable spiritual power, and his power of purification, as he gradually rinsed and cleansed every corner of Ma Xiaotao's body through those 3 channels. He dispelled every ounce of the evil qi, while he maintained her fire-type soul power. Ma Xiaotao's depletion and exhaustion from before proved very beneficial. She didn't have a vast pool of soul power, and Huo Yuhao had restricted her recovery. This enabled him to focus on her body from the beginning. Huo Yuhao took 12 hours to dispel all the evil qi from her body, and her spiritual sea was next. Ma Xiaodao could only truly awaken if the evil qi in her spiritual sea was also dispelled. This was undoubtedly a difficult process. It wasn't hard to imagine how sophisticated a person's spiritual sea could be, and furthermore, both parties were opposing each other. Huo Yuhao contemplated deeply for a few moments before he finally decided to proceed with a relatively riskier method, because he couldn't delay any further. Ma Xiaotao's spiritual sea was releasing evil qi from the beginning to the end, and if he didn't cleanse her spiritual sea completely, then everything he had just done could be wasted. Huo Yuhao controlled his thoughts as he used spiritual dispossession against Ma Xiaotao's spiritual sea. Spiritual dispossession could allow anyone's defenses against spiritual power to be instantly reduced to 0, and all defensive capabilities against spiritual power would be completely dispelled. Huo Yuhao quickly used spiritual blast after he finished using spiritual dispossession. Under his delicate control, his spiritual blast was only 50% as strong as normal. Ma Xiaotao's spiritual sea trembled vigorously as his spiritual blast coursed through it, and Huo Yuhao took this opportunity to inject a thread of his spiritual power that had the power of purification embedded within it into Ma Xiaotao's spiritual sea. Ma Xiaotao's spiritual sea was entirely dark red. If Huo Yuhao's spiritual sea was a golden ocean, then her spiritual sea was molten lava. Molten lava boiled and bubbled as the thread of purification power entered her spiritual sea. A single patch of dark red lava immediately turned golden red, but the lava immediately retaliated against Huo Yuhao's spiritual power ferociously. It's effective. Huo Yuhao immediately made an accurate judgment, and no longer held back, as he fully unleashed his embedded purification power. Gentle white light covered a large patch of Ma Xiaotao's spiritual sea, and fought valiantly against all the evil qi contained within it. Huo Yuhao took this opportunity to raise his right hand as he placed his finger in between Ma Xiaotao's eyebrows, and continuously infused his power of purification into Ma Xiaotao's spiritual sea. Huo Yuhao's spiritual power was protecting her, so his power of purification couldn't possibly hurt her brain. Furthermore, his control was very intricate and delicate, and he made his move against the core regions of Ma Xiaotao's spiritual sea. The power of purification would spread outward from those central areas, which meant it wouldn't touch her vital organs and parts around her spiritual sea prematurely. Time continued to pass, and Ma Xiaotao's sinister and twisted expression began to recede. Her dark and insidious face gradually regained some color and rosiness, as her evil qi was dispelled one drop after another. Huo Yuhao seemed like he was in a steamer basket, as large amounts of mist and water vapor effused from his body and rose through the air. This represented Huo Yuhao's formidable spiritual power that could rival that of an ultimate Douluo. Another person in his shoes would have crumbled a long time ago. Huo Yuhao had to use spiritual dispossession against Ma Xiaodao continuously, because only then could he ensure that his power of purification could enter continually. Ma Xiaotao's soul power was slowly recovering through her soul core. There was still some evil qi contained in her soul power, but that evil qi was a lot fainter than before. Furthermore, she still couldn't do anything because Huo Yuhao had shut off her spiritual sea, and her eyes were closed as painful expressions appeared on her pretty face from time to time. Huo Yuhao's power of purification finally dispelled the last thread of evil qi in Ma Xiaotao's spiritual sea. He took a deep breath, and slowly retracted his finger, and placed it back onto her palm. Huo Yuhao's ultimate ice soul power rushed into her body, and the icy chill immediately gave Ma Xiaodao a cold shiver, as she opened her eyes. Ma Xiaodao seemed a little lost when she first opened her eyes, but her soul seemed to return when she saw Huo Yuhao in front of her. Ma Xiaotao's face flowed with pleasant surprise, and she seemed like she wanted to say something, but she immediately felt Huo Yuhao's flourishing ultimate ice soul power that was coursing through her body, and she hurriedly channeled her own soul power to cooperate with him. Everything became a lot smoother once she started to cooperate. Huo Yuhao's formidable yin-yang equilibrium soul core's spiritual power was overbearing, and terrifying soul power swept over her and quickly wiped out the evil qi in her body. Much of Ma Xiaotao's soul power was also purified. Much of her soul power was still filled with evil qi, and that would continue affecting her if he didn't cleanse it all. Huo Yuhao exhaled deeply as he withdrew his palms. Ma Xiaodao also took a deep breath, and her body felt very comfortable and relaxed, but she felt a little empty at the same time. Her strength had plummeted, and she didn't just lose her ultimate fire. She had also lost almost a third of her soul power. Even though she would recover very quickly, she knew that there was something wrong with her martial soul, and that the evil qi in her body could relapse if she recovered her cultivation. The underlying problem was still there, but at least her mind was back to normal. Light flashed on Huo Yuhao's hand at this moment as a jade box appeared in his hands. The box opened, and a golden red paste that resembled honey appeared in front of Ma Xiaodao. A faint aroma that was mixed with dense and pure elements of fire immediately caught Ma Xiaotao's attention. Huo Yuhao came up to Ma Xiaodao, and he fed the blazing rubber inside the box into Ma Xiaotao's mouth bit by bit. Ma Xiaodao didn't speak from the beginning to the end, and neither did she decline as she swallowed the blazing rubber piece by piece. Tears were welling up in her eyes. "I'm sorry, sister. I was too slow, and you've suffered so much as a result. I will definitely fix you once and for all this time, and you will become a true soul master of ultimate fire after today. You will not have to worry about that evil qi anymore. This is called blazing rubber, and it's a fire-type immortal herb's essence. It will only appear after gestating for at least 10,000 years." Ma Xiaodao felt the blazing rubber in her stomach as thick elements of fire rose within her body, and the weakness that she felt was immediately replaced by a swelling feeling. Gorgeous rosy red colors radiated all over her body as those thick elements of fire continued swelling and rippling. Huo Yuhao couldn't help her anymore, because his ultimate ice would only be counterproductive if he injected it into her body now. How Ma Xiaodao would emerge from her cocoon was now up to her own cultivation process. Huo Yuhao didn't doubt the blazing rubber's potency. He had almost squeezed the blazing delicate apricot dry back then for this piece, and 100,000-year soul beast's essence should be sufficient to help Ma Xiaodao purify her martial soul. Ma Xiaodao quickly entered meditation, and Huo Yuhao finally heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally treated his elder sister successfully, which had been one of his greatest wishes. Huo Yuhao didn't just leave, but instead sat opposite Ma Xiaodao and quietly channeled his soul power so that he could recover, while he protected her at the same time. Ma Xiaodao was absorbing the blazing rubber more quickly than he had expected, and she only took 2 hours before her aura began to transform drastically. The temperature around her began to rise continuously, and the ground beneath her feet turned dark red. Faint golden red light shone 20 meters around her and pulsed with her breathing, and Huo Yuhao was forced further away because of that scorching aura so that he wouldn't be affected. Ang! A bright phoenix call echoed through the skies as a pair of golden red phoenix wings stretched out behind Ma Xiaotao's back. Yes, her wings were golden red, no longer dark red, as her fiery aura surged into the sky. Ma Xiaodao flapped her wings heavily as she took herself high into the sky. There seemed to be another golden red sun in the sky that shone over the great earth and triggered countless undead creatures' agonizing howls at the same time. Sunlight was an important part of life for the Douluo continent, but such intense sunlight only meant death and destruction inside this spectral demiplane. Most of the undead creatures fell to the ground in fear and waited for this destructive and apocalyptic force to descend upon them. Fortunately, everything was just temporary. The golden red light gradually receded in the sky, and Ma Xiaotao's fiery red hair regained its color. Every strand seemed to be formed from red jewels threaded together. Ma Xiaotao's attractive frame gradually drifted down as she arrived in front of Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao was already on his feet, and he stared at her with a faint smile on his face. "Welcome back, sister," Huo Yuhao said with a smile. Ma Xiaodao opened her arms and gave him a bear hug. She was a buxom girl, and her busty body squeezed Huo Yuhao until he felt a little suffocated and awkward. But he felt more happiness and bliss. Ma Xiaodao kissed his cheek heavily as she looked up and said, "Thank you, little brother." Huo Yuhao shook his head. "No, I was too late. You wouldn't have had to suffer so much if I had come for you earlier." Ma Xiaotao's face darkened. "I will take back what the Holy Ghost Church owes me someday. Where are we? Why are there so many undead creatures here? Watch me kill a whole bunch of them first." She turned and was about to walk away as she spoke. Ma Xiaotao's mind had recovered, and her fiery temper was also back. Huo Yuhao hurriedly pulled her back, as he briefly explained his spectral demiplane's origins, and only then did Ma Xiaodao change her mind. "Let's go out, sister. Everyone in the academy is worried sick about you, and there are some things that I have to deal with." The black spectral gate reopened as Huo Yuhao took Ma Xiaodao back to the Sea God's Pavilion. The Sea God's Pavilion was still radiating faint golden light, and the tall golden tree was still there. Everything that Ma Xiaodao was familiar with was still here, and tears fell from her eyes uncontrollably when she saw everything as she knelt on the ground. "I'm back. I'm finally back. I'm finally back home." Ma Xiaodao started bawling, and she was like a wanderer who had returned home in this moment. She didn't seem like a formidable title Douluo at all. Roughly 10 years had gone by since she had been captured. Those 10 years passed like a dream. She had been immersed in evil qi and killing from the beginning to the end, and she didn't have control over her mind. Huo Yuhao had rescued her halfway for a period of time, and she tried to control herself, but she wasn't able to do that for long. She fell back into that dreadful cycle in the end. Her martial soul had finally sublimated, and she finally became a true soul master of ultimate fire. Evil qi would no longer cause her any trouble, and she felt like she had been reborn. Huo Yuhao knelt down beside Ma Xiaodao, but he didn't attempt to console her. She had been immensely affected by all that evil qi over these years, and her emotions had been stifled too much. Catharsis was definitely beneficial for her. Ma Xiaodao cried for 15 minutes. There was someone else tearing up at the same time, but it wasn't Huo Yuhao. Instead, it was the dean of Shrek Academy's martial soul department, Yang Xiaozhe, who was standing in front of the Sea God's Pavilion. Ma Xiaodao finally cried until she was a little tired. She raised her head, and when she saw Yang Xiaozhe, she immediately exclaimed at the top of her voice, "Teacher." Ma Xiaodao dashed into Yang Xiaozhe's arms with a quick step, and continued crying uncontrollably. Yang Xiaozhe had raised her since she was a child, and teacher and disciple were very close. Yang Xiaozhe didn't have any kids, and he had always treated her like his own daughter. He had never given up searching for her even though she had been missing for so many years, but the world was vast, and the Holy Ghost Church was the one who had kidnapped her. How could he possibly find her? But now Ma Xiaodao had returned, and her mind was back to normal. How could Yang Xiaozhe hold back his tears any longer? Ma Xiaotao's deafening cries finally attracted the elders' attention, as they stepped out from the sea god's pavilion one after another. Everyone revealed gratified expressions as they witnessed Ma Xiaotao's return, and that she was back to normal. Furthermore, her return represented an addition to the academy's strength. They had seen Ma Xiaotao's strength during her battle against Huo Yuhao. Even though she was still weaker in comparison, she was still more talented overall than Jing Lishuan. Ma Xiaodao was almost a transcendent Douluo. She had been one of the inner courtyard's most outstanding students before she had been captured, and her return was definitely wonderful. Just when everyone was feeling happy and excited, Huo Yuhao quietly entered the sea god's pavilion and walked into Tang Wutong's room as he sat down next to her quietly. I wish to be alone with Wutong for a while. Is that all right, Xiao Xiao? Huo Yuhao asked softly. Xiao Xiao nodded as she turned to leave. A faint smile appeared on Huo Yuhao's face, as he stared at Tang Wutong's ghastly pale face, as she lay on her bed. He gently combed her pinkish-blue hair before he kissed her gently on her tender cheeks. I've done everything I can. The Sun Moon Empire's army has retreated, and Sister Xiaodao has returned. 2 of my wishes have been fulfilled. Even though there are some other things that require my attention, you are more important. We will go home right now, back to your home. No matter what those 2 sect leaders do to me, I have to help you recover. If you don't, then I will go wherever you go. I will never leave your side again for the rest of my life no matter what, even if I have to become a corpse. Huo Yuhao took out a piece of paper as he spoke, and wrote some things before he placed the paper gently on a table beside him. He began chanting, and a spectral gate quietly opened. This was Huo Yuhao's first time using the spectral door in the sea god's pavilion. This was really because he didn't want to alarm anyone. Perhaps leaving just like this was the best choice. He didn't even know if he could return. He sent Tang Wutong into the spectral demiplane along with the bed before he silently left the sea god's pavilion. He found the Ice Bear King resting in a corner of the academy, and sent him into the demiplane to protect Tang Wutong. After this, he left the academy. When Xiao Xiao came to Tang Wutong's room, all she saw was a piece of white paper. Very soon, this piece of white paper was in front of Elder Xian. Elder Xian, eldest senior, elders and teammates, I'm leaving with Wutong. Wutong is not in a very good condition. None of us know what to do. I'm bringing her to find a physician. No matter what price I have to pay, I must heal her. She's very important to me. If she can't recover, I'm afraid that I can't face this world calmly anymore. Everyone, please take care. Yuhao. He sounded very calm, but everyone could sense the heavy fatigue in his words. They could sense Huo Yuhao's fatigue. Yes. He had been carrying a lot on his shoulders over these few years. With Tang Wutong around, at least he had a spiritual support. Now that she was heavily injured, Huo Yuhao chose to leave. More accurately speaking, he didn't leave, but went to seek treatment for Tang Wutong. Her recovery would also determine whether his heart would change for the better. This kid is really pitiful. His heart is too heavy. I hope Wutong can recover. Elder Xian shut his eyes heavily. Huo Yuhao had done a lot for the academy. At such a time, who could blame him? They could only wish him well. Ma Xiaodao silently stood beside Elder Xian. She also saw what Huo Yuhao had left behind. Although she didn't know what had happened, there was a resilient look in her eyes right now. Go and do what you have to, little brother. I'll shoulder your responsibilities on your behalf. Elder Xian, let me take over Yuhao's position in the Sea God's Pavilion now that is left. Ma Xiaodao asked Elder Xian. No one thought that Ma Xiaodao was doing this to usurp power. When the entire continent was in turmoil, power also meant responsibilities. Elder Xian nodded silently. All right. Ma Xiaodao looked at Xiao and asked, "You are also part of the Tang sect. Tell me, what happened to Yuhao when I was away?" After leaving Shrek City, Huo Yuhao felt very relaxed. He hadn't experienced such a feeling for many years. Relief was perhaps the best word to use to describe his current feeling. Leaving everything behind wasn't easy. However, letting go was sometimes the key to understanding happiness. Was Huo Yuhao happy? He didn't know either. But he knew that he was relieved. It was finally time for him to temporarily give everything up. He really wanted to forget everything in this world and just protect Tang Wutong. If not for the fact that she was in a coma, he wouldn't have made up his mind to do something like this. In his heart, there were still many things he had to do. However, they weren't important right now. What was more important than Tang Wutong? Lights flashed in the sky as clouds swept past him. Unknowingly, Huo Yuhao was already flying at an extremely rapid speed. His yin-yang complement soul cores seemed to be even more compatible, as he was in such a relieved state. They no longer fought each other, but seemed to fuse together through the yin-yang complement. Whirlpool-like soul power was generated in his body, and surged before dissipating at high speed. This dissipation was almost nothing to Huo Yuhao. From Shrek Academy to the Clear Sky sect, the distance wasn't considered too long. The Clear Sky sect was in the Heavenly Soul Empire. More accurately speaking, it was now part of the Sun Moon Empire. Huo Yuhao was simply too quick. He was so quick that the aerial surveillance soul tools couldn't find him. But any surveillance soul tool that came within reach of his senses couldn't escape his clutches. He didn't even need to use any energy. Ever since he had killed that Class 9 soul engineer, Huo Yuhao had developed a new understanding of the Tang sect's hidden weapons. It was really like going back to the basics. That feeling was magical. This was why he could still destroy the core formation of an aerial surveillance soul tool as long as he had a small piece of metal, even if the soul tool was thousands of meters away. From there, he could destroy the soul tool completely. It was a very refreshing feeling. Right now, Huo Yuhao was seeking such excitement. This was why any aerial surveillance soul tool he passed was unlucky. Many of them were destroyed. Sun Moon Empire Army. Juzi quietly sat in the commander's tent. Her Sin memorandum had just been sent back to the Sun Moon Empire's radiant city. This time, she had lost, and lost badly. Just as the army retreated, the remaining members of the Imperial Dragon and Evil Tyrant Soul Engineer Legions returned. Just after they returned, the Legion commander of the Evil Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion immediately went to confront the Evil Soul Masters. There were less than 300 Soul Engineers left in the two Soul Engineer Legions. However, they were still as hostile as ever. The moment they entered the base, they immediately went to where the Evil Soul Masters were stationed. At this moment, the Evil Soul Masters were without a head. Zhongluo had disappeared, while the evil Transcendent Douluo were either dead or injured. Their overall strength had fallen. A violent confrontation was about to ensue. When the other Soul Engineer Legions heard this news, they immediately rushed over to mediate. However, they also turned furious when they learned from the Imperial Dragon and Evil Tyrant Soul Engineer Legions that the Holy Ghost Church had ambushed those two Soul Engineer Legions. It wasn't their first day getting annoyed by Evil Soul Masters. This incident caused the entire base to descend into chaos. Even Juzi wouldn't be able to handle such chaos in the base. The eventual result was that almost all the evil titled Douluo from the Holy Ghost Church ran away. However, those that were weaker were all torn apart by the enraged Soul Engineers. This issue was blown up. What was the Holy Ghost Church? It was the national church of the Sun Moon Empire. Even if it was an evil soul master sect, it was still a holy church that protected the empire. Many of the Soul Engineer Legion commanders kneeled down in front of Juzi and asked for punishment. However, was it really possible to punish them now? These Soul Engineer Legions were her supporters. As a result, Juzi could only temporarily station the army outside the original Heavenly Soul Empire's borders. After that, she sent a Sin memorandum to await punishment from the Emperor. It was only by doing this that she could reach the perfect resolution. Otherwise, there would be a revolt. Yuhao, you are really vicious. You always claim to be soft-hearted. Aren't you showing me your toughness this time? No one knew who had attacked the 2 Soul Engineer legions from the hand that protects the nation, but how could Juzi not know? Huo Yuhao possessed both ice-type abilities and the ability to summon specters. Furthermore, she was the one who had personally told Huo Yuhao that the Sun Moon Empire wanted to attack the Douluo Empire. Yuhao, you're really smart. You actually guessed that I was going to carry out an assassination. Although you arrived a little late, you were still able to maintain your composure and use such a tactic to cause internal chaos within my army. Yes, you've gotten your way. This time, there's internal chaos within the Sun Moon Empire. Along with our low morale, we won't be able to attack anytime soon. Such a good opportunity has gone to waste. There's also news from the Douluo Empire that there's a surviving member of the imperial family. This member fixed internal problems in Douluo City, so things weren't as bad as they were supposed to be. Juzi refused to believe that these matters had nothing to do with Huo Yuhao. Yuhao. You are really much more powerful than I imagined. Have you finally matured during the war? I'm not sure whether it's a blessing or misfortune to have you as my opponent. Yuhao, no wonder I'm interested in you. Even though you've caused me a lot of problems, why am I still so happy? Is it because I've watched my man mature? In fact, I'm more hopeful that you'll become the ruler of the entire continent in the future. If that's the case, I'll do my best to help you. Our kid will be your future successor. That's the perfect ending I hope to see. However, I know that that's almost impossible. Juzi locked up all the commanders involved in attacking the Holy Ghost Church. She still had to do what was right on the surface. At the same time, she also convinced them. She was the leader of an army. Now that a problem had arisen, the blame would be attributed to her first. If the emperor condemned them, she would suffer all the consequences. Marshal, this matter has nothing to do with you. We are the culprits. You are the pillar of our empire. Without you, we couldn't have wiped out the Heavenly Soul Empire and caused the entire continent to waver. How can we let you take any punishment for us? A Class 9 Soul Engineer said agitatedly. Who would have expected the War God Empress to say that she would shoulder all the blame? She was the Empress. She was also the Marshal of the army. She could attribute all the wrongdoings to the internal chaos. While any chaos could be linked to the Marshal, the reason for this chaos could still acquit her of any wrongdoing. However, she didn't do so. This meant that she was willing to shoulder all responsibility. This left all the Soul Engineer Legion commanders and worshipped with a whole new outlook of this Empress. A marshal who was willing to shoulder all responsibility was definitely what any soldier would want to see. This video will end here.